The Haunting on the Gridiron. I had always dreamed of leading our high school football team to victory, but nothing could have prepared me for the horrors that unfolded that fateful season. My name is Jake, and I was the quarterback for the Rivertown Ravens. We were a team on the rise, and this year promised to be our best yet. Little did I know that the field I had practiced on for years held a dark secret. It all began when we moved to our new stadium, a gleaming structure of steel and concrete that rose like a fortress on the outskirts of town. Our old field had been worn and battered, but it held a certain charm. The new stadium, though, was something else entirely. At first it seemed like a dream come true. The locker rooms were pristine, the field perfectly manicured, and the roar of the crowd as we ran onto the turf was deafening. It was as if the very walls of the stadium reverberated with the promise of glory. Our winning streak began immediately, and it was like we couldn't be stopped. Our plays were flawless, our teamwork unparalleled, and I was throwing passes like I had never thrown before. But beneath the cheers and the bright lights, there was an unease that gnawed at me. It started with whispers in the locker room, faint murmurs of voices I couldn't quite make out. At first, I dismissed it as the overactive imagination of a teenage athlete. But as the weeks went by, the whispers grew louder, more distinct. I tried to ignore it, to focus on the game, but it was becoming impossible. My teammates started to act strangely, as if they were possessed by some unseen force. They played with a reckless abandon, throwing themselves into tackles and collisions as if their lives depended on it. I watched in horror as one of our linemen tackled an opponent so violently that he broke the poor guy's leg. It was as if the stadium itself was urging us to be more aggressive, more brutal. Then came the nightmares. Every night I would wake up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding in my chest. I dreamt of shadowy figures on the field, figures that moved with an unnatural grace. They whispered to me, their voices a chilling chorus of despair and longing. They wanted something from me, something I couldn't understand. I tried to confide in my coach, but he brushed off my concerns, chalking it up to stress and nerves. He told me that I was the best quarterback he had ever coached, and that I shouldn't let anything distract me from the game. But I knew deep down that something was terribly wrong. As the season wore on, the stadium seemed to come alive with a malevolent energy. It was as if the very ground beneath our feet was cursed. The grass on the field turned a sickly shade of gray, and the lights that once shone so brightly now flickered and dimmed. The stadium had become a place of darkness, a place where nightmares were born. One evening, as I walked onto the field for practice, I felt a cold breeze on the back of my neck. I turned to see a figure standing in the shadows, a figure that sent shivers down my spine. It was a man, or at least it appeared to be, but his skin was ashen and his eyes were empty voids. He beckoned to me with a bony hand, and I couldn't resist. I approached him, my heart pounding in my chest. "Who are you?" I stammered, my voice trembling. "I hunger for something more, something that only you can provide." I didn't understand what he meant, but before I could ask, he reached out, lunging at me. It was as if a bolt of lightning shot through my body, filling me with a power I had never known. I could feel the strength of the stadium coursing through my veins, but it came at a terrible cost. From that moment on, I was a different person on the field. I played with a ruthlessness and aggression that scared even my own teammates. I threw passes with such force that they left my receivers battered and bruised. I tackled opponents with a ferocity that bordered on madness. It was as if I had become a puppet, controlled by the dark spirit that haunted the stadium. The nightmares continued, each one more vivid and terrifying than the last. I saw the history of the stadium unfold before me, a history steeped in blood and sacrifice. I saw players from decades past, their faces twisted in agony as they were consumed by the malevolent force that dwelled here. I saw coaches driven to madness, their minds shattered by the relentless whispers of the spirits that called this place home. I tried to resist the spirit's influence, to fight back against the darkness that threatened to consume me, but it was a losing battle. The more I resisted, the stronger the spirit's hold on me became. Then came the final game of the season, the championship game that would determine our fate. The stadium was packed with fans, their cheers and chants echoing through the night. The air was thick with tension, and I knew that this was the moment of reckoning. As I stepped onto the field, I felt the spirit's presence more strongly than ever. It was as if it had merged with me, becoming one with my very being. I could hear its whispers in my mind, urging me to win at any cost. to destroy our opponents and claim victory. But as the game began, I saw the fear in the eyes of my teammates. They were no longer playing for the love of the game. They were playing out of desperation, out of fear of what would happen if we lost. I couldn't bear to see them like this, to see them under the thrall of the dark spirit that had ensnared us all. In a moment of clarity, I made a decision. I knew that I had to break free, no matter the cost. I called a timeout and gathered my teammates around me. "We can't let whatever this is win," I whispered urgently. "We have to fight back." My teammates looked at me with a mixture of fear and hope. I could see the struggle in their eyes, the battle between the darkness that had consumed them and the spark of humanity that still remained. As much as we wanted to walk away, we couldn't. As the game resumed now much against our will, we played with a newfound determination. We played not for the spirit that haunted the stadium, but for ourselves, for our love of the game, and for the bonds of friendship that had brought us together. In the final minutes of the game, with victory within our grasp, I threw a perfect pass to our wide receiver, who caught the ball in the end zone for the winning touchdown. The stadium erupted in cheers, but there was no joy in my heart. I knew that the spirit had not been vanquished, only temporarily disappeared. It would always be there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to fall under its sway. As I walked off the field, I could still hear its whispers, a chilling reminder of the darkness that dwelled within the haunted stadium. The victory was bittersweet, for I knew that our battle was far from over. The spirit of the stadium will always be a part of me, a part of all of us who had been touched by its malevolent influence. And so, as the years passed, I learned that the heads of the town, including our coach, knew exactly what was going on. Their thirst to win championships was worth possession and losing a few souls. I watched as the stadium claimed more victims, more players who fell under its dark spell. I tried to warn outsiders, to tell them the truth about the haunted stadium, but my words fell on deaf ears. The allure of victory was too strong, and they paid the price for their ignorance. I can only hope that someday, someone will find a way to break the curse of the stadium, to banish the dark spirit that haunts its hallowed grounds. Until then, the haunting on the gridiron will continue, a never-ending nightmare for those who dare to step onto the field.